Welcome to Helping Organizations Thrive. Today I have the great pleasure of Kevin Kehoe on the show. Good afternoon or good morning to you, Kevin. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good morning, Julian. We're on the other side of the U.S., so yeah, good morning to you.
Yes, I love technology and the fact that we can have these conversations, and it's brilliant. I'm just going to introduce you to the audience. You're an inspiring author, author of the book called The One Hit Wonder. The real life adventures of an average guy, that's what you call yourself, and the lessons you've learned along the way. You're also an entrepreneur, a co-founder, and a cancer survivor. And after doing small business consulting for sort of 30 years, you co-founded Aspire Software in 2013, which was sold in 2021. And so we'll be exploring a little bit more about your entrepreneur journey, but also I think there's certainly a story behind battling through cancer while all that was going on as well. So and get some lessons in resilience and persistence and how you overcome that. And yeah, just want to hear some lessons from you really. So before we get into that, Kevin, what do you love about what you do?
Well, just about everything. I know that sounds pretty broad, but uh, I get to choose what I like to do, which independence has always been a great motivator for me. I get to create, and I get to lead. Those are three things I just like doing, right? Choose, create, and lead. And so any opportunity that kind of fits in that venue or that particular description of a job, I'm good at that. So if it's writing a book, if it was running a company, I mean, I think all the same things apply, right? I just never been good at working for others.
Yeah. Okay. So you like to create things, which is, I think we're all here to do some form of creating, aren't we? You've created books, you created companies, and we're going to now create a conversation, hopefully, that will inspire people and stir people and perhaps get some lessons along the way as well. So going back to your business that you started, it'd be interesting to understand what got you to, you call it your one hit wonder, which is your business. What was the purpose behind it, the reason behind it, the motivation? Because it's a big thing starting a business. I think
Yes.
people don't always realize what is behind that, and people just start them sort of to a penny. But actually, there's a lot that goes into that. I just like to almost get back to the I guess the origin story of your business.
Yeah, I mean, starting a business, I could break it down between what I might call more mom and pop, where there's not a lot of capital needed up front, and then something where it's more a scalable type business where you do need a lot of capital up front. And software is the latter. It's going to take you at least a year to go build your beta version or your first version of the software. And so stepping back on all of this, I had been a consultant in the industry, landscape management, construction, snow and ice management in the US, big business. And I had consulted in that business financially, strategic planning, sales, all those things for probably 30 years. And I knew lots of people. I understood the business and really saw that there was a lack of an ERP operating system, right? So a contractor could, from get go, know where are my sales, what's going in production, what's happening in payroll, what's in purchase, where am I in my job cost, getting my jobs done, and then rolling it all up into some sort of profit and loss statement, right? And we're making money. And so it was kind of a no brainer to come up with a concept because there wasn't a lot there, because that was the most common question I would always get asked. Hey, Kevin, what software would you recommend we use? And there wasn't a lot at the time. And
So
so
you already knew what the problem was, which is always handy,
we
isn't
already
it?
knew what the problem was for sure, that we lacked this ability to give the contractor insight every day. And, instead of waiting to the end of the month to say, how did we do? We could give you everyday insight with a cloud mobile platform, right? And
Mm.
it's in your hand, it's on the phone, it's on an iPad, it's in your computer. And so raising the capital, we went through what I call angel investors. So we raised several millions dollars to put out to hire. Obviously, it's all people. Software business is nothing but highly expensive people. So We used the funding to hire that group of people, and a little more than a year, we put out V1. And rather quickly, in 5 or 6 years, grew it to a pretty substantial share of market.
Wow. And just before you launched it, and in some ways now you've done it, grew it, sold it, and got the T-shirt along the way and everything else. Go back to that sort of days when you were sort of creating the plan, the ideas. What was it that made you take that step? Because it's a brave step still, and the fact that you had to raise cash and convince investors to part with their cash to go with this idea. What was that step? What caused it? What was it? What was the sort of courage that got you across the line?
Some of it was a bit of a loyalty test. I had done some work with another software engineer in the industry. He had a product that I didn't think was good enough in some ways. And so he and I got to talking. He asked, what would it look like better? And so we built up a friendship over a couple of years. And then he ran into partner problems, meaning that they weren't getting along. And he approached me and wanted to know if I would help him purchase the business away from them. And what happened was his partners did precisely the opposite. They executed some poison pill in the contract and bought him out. And in our conversations, I had said, well, what happens if they buy you out? What are you going to do? What's plan B? And plan B was, he says, we'll write a brand new software. I'm like, that's a totally different world, partner, right? Writing a brand new software. But when the moment came, right, it seemed like it was highly doable, that we could raise the cash, right? We've been talking to people about this concept, right, over a period of about a year. So it wasn't out of the blue for a lot of our investors by the time they came to us. But, writing it down and actually committing to an Excel spreadsheet, projected customers and numbers and pricing and cost, that's a hell of an activity to get into, because it really takes it from a concept to, can you execute that thing? And by the time we were done, we thought we could execute this thing. So we just raised the money, we stepped in and started building, and we went through a million problems like every entrepreneur has, making the thing work.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of people come up with ideas of businesses or ideas in their business, and often the thing that stops people actually acting upon those, which you might be surprised with, it's belief, and belief that it will happen, or belief in it may happen, and wanting things to always have a perfect outcome. And so, what sort of belief, where did that belief come from that this could happen? Or did you not have any, or did you just sort of just go for it and let's see what happens? Or was it people around you?
It was more than going for it to see what happens. I mean, we proofed it with a number of investors and other people. And I don't know, you and I may have spoken about this on a prior preview prep, but I said that kind of risk never really bothered me that much if I could see the way to get there. I don't know if that makes sense. In other words, I didn't get freaked out about it. And I realized the plan wouldn't work exactly the way we put it down. But I had confidence that my partner could do the technical side, could build it. I knew it. And I had confidence I could sell it, right? I had no lack of confidence. And I'm not suggesting that it wouldn't be a harder sell, because it's expensive to buy ERP software. It's not an expensive product. But that I could sell it and people would get interested. And knowing that and having that confidence in 30 years of sort of working experience, to me, it wasn't that tough to do in the end.
Well, excellent. And if somebody came to you today, they're just about to set up a new business, what sort of 2-3 tips or advice based on your experience of how you started, what you learned, what were the pitfalls that you would share with that individual to really help them have a fast start, and not that they'll be problem free, but they'll get there a bit quicker than perhaps you did?
When you look at it from an investor's point of view, the first thing they look at is who are the people. Right? They don't look at the projections. Of course, they'll look at the projections about revenue and cost and profit and when do you break even. But they look at the people. So I think you really have to know, especially if you're going in with a partner, those are always dicey. I mean, you've really got to think through, do I want another marriage? Because that's what you end up being in, essentially, right? So that's one consideration. I think the second is capital. Most of us will underestimate the amount of capital required before we break even, right? And to me, not the worst thing, but a problematic thing is to go back to your investors for a second ask. Because now all of a sudden, it's like, well, what happened to all the money we gave you in the beginning? And how do we know this isn't going to be the last time you come? Right? So don't underestimate the amount of capital that you need. And then thirdly is don't underestimate the hours, because it's going to impact your family, your wife. It's hours. And so if you can, in your mind's eye, because those things have nothing to do with selling the product, right? I didn't even talk about that. Just getting your life situation right so you can go out there and execute. Because if you can't execute with a clear head and you've got problems at home or with your partner or not enough cash, then you're spending so little time working on your business, you're spending time trying to just keep it alive.
There's a lot of balls to juggle, isn't there? And a lot of things to think about.
There are. There really are to do it. And I think a good plan helps, really knowing what I think General Patton said: no plan survives first contact with the enemy, or maybe that was Clausewitz in Germany, right? It's like, but you got to have a plan. I mean, you got to have a plan. At least it gives you some, if not time frames, gives you some benchmarks about what should be accomplished, and then you could start to move things around, right, as they come up, because you can't always predict.
It's having that plan, but not thinking that it's the perfect plan, and a plan where when things don't go quite right, and having the mindsets and the agility to learn, reconfigure, and do it again, and go out again, and do things slightly differently until you achieve what you're trying to achieve. We know that nothing's a straight line; it's always an up and down. But as you say, but you need a plan. You need what you're going to do today will get you to where you want to be tomorrow. If you wait until tomorrow, it won't happen. So it's important to have a plan, and as simple as that. And it is as simple as that. But I think often we forget about those small steps in delivering on, or the process of delivering on our outcomes, and they start with today. Now, during all this, you had I'd say a huge life-changing experience. You had cancer through all this, which is just, and I think you're still sort of.
I am. I'm still fighting the battle. It's we're deep in the battle still. But yes, I had cancer almost contemporaneous with the startup of the business. Not more than a few months apart. Right, we had started, and then I got the diagnosis, and so that's 9 years ago now, almost. Well, 8.5. And it's come back, and we're right after this call. I'm headed down to treatments, right?
Oh goodness.
To see if we can keep this thing at bay, and that's what you have to do with this disease. There's no cure for me at this point, right? There might be some remission. It's just really living with a chronic disease, without letting it attack you completely. So it's hardest thing I've ever done. Hardest by far.
And you don't sound like you're living with cancer. You don't appear to be living with cancer. You've got a real spirit about you, which is, and all the conversations I've had with you, which is, I think, is really great, and how you're going about it. But how do you cope with starting a business and having such a traumatic life events? How did you sort of marry that, and how did you keep going, and what kept you going? I mean, I can't get my head around it, because I've never experienced it, and I don't know how that would feel. So how do you work that through?
On the more practical side, it changed the roles of the people in our hiring, right? We had to hire on a little more quickly because I couldn't be available all the time, right? I mean, I was doing software demonstrations on the 405 freeway, trying to sell the product, going back and forth to chemo and radiation treatments, right? I'd work out of a hospital bed, right? So there were some practical things. We just had to change what my role was because I wasn't there all the time like I was expected to be. Second, well, certainly my wife, my family, my friends. I'll tell you this, it's a brutal, unforgiving disease. Just when you think you've made progress, it kicks you back in the teeth. Without my wife, I have no idea how I would have gotten through it. She was there all the time. Some of it's just luck, some of it's prayer, some of it's good doctoring. And when I say luck, I actually do mean that, just depending upon the mutation of your own particular cancer. Because colorectal cancer for me is not the same as the next person. There's differences. And so you're living in a world where it's pretty frightening because you don't know who to trust, right? You haven't had it before. You don't know what the doctor is telling you is real or not. And what he's more importantly not telling you, he or she, right? And so, we've learned a lot, but we're even still learning today where, we're now in some holistic and non-standard cancer protocol treatments, right? Just because the other ones haven't worked completely, and some of those hospitals just don't do anything else, Julian. That's what they do, right? And so it's what you don't know and that can really hurt you in this journey because if you lose time, you get in trouble. That's all. You can't make it up because the disease gets in advance. That's all.
You talked about uncertainty. When you step out and start a new business, there's uncertainty. In fact, we're in a time of uncertainty with all what's been going on the last few years. And then you have this huge uncertainty in your health. How did you navigate that? What were the sort of mind tricks that got you through those days when it must have been absolutely devastating, awful, sad? What's the point? You must have gone through a whole host of emotions on a daily, hourly basis at times. How did you keep going? And because you've got such a good spirit about you, where does that come from? How have you got that?
Yeah, some of it's mind tricks, Julian. Like one was, I'm never gonna, even in the darkest at night in bed when you're lying awake looking at the ceiling, thinking about your mortality, I'm never going to ask why me. I'm not going to go down that path, right? Why did I get it? That's not fair. I decided to eliminate that concept and instead, like, what's next? What do I got to do next? That helped. Also, I think a part of it was I just decided to live like I had other things to do. I had a job. I had to go to work. I did it. I didn't obsess on what was going on. And the third part of me believed I'm Kevin Kehoe. I'm never going to die, right? It's not possible that it could happen.
Fantastic. I love it.
So that's how I got through. That's how I still get through.
And now, are you? Is it as bad as it was then? Now, or is it all?
Yes.
It's still right. Okay.
It's as bad. Yeah. The next 2 months are going to be critical. Let's just say that.
Right.
I got to get some progress the next 2 months, or we're in a tough spot. So.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Me too.
Yeah, you don't sound like. I say I just love your optimism and your energy about you. So it's fantastic. It's a testament to you and all what you've been doing, however, since you've been, or who you are, and what you've become, I guess. How do you do? Has it changed your perspective on life and business?
Oh, entirely. Yes, of course. How could it not, right? Question is, of course, how. I've always been a real driver, a real get it done type of person, not a hugger. I'm a hugger now. Um, I tell people I love them because I do. Um, um, I forgot the rest of your question. I'm sorry.
It's just how has it changed your perspective on life and
Oh yeah,
business?
and this idea of that people really are in pain. You know, when you're not in pain, you don't know what it's like, um, and then you see it, and you've been there. Entirely different experience with people, right?
Mm.
Sympathy, and I don't mean sympathy in a bad way. Empathy. Um, you know, you just realize how bloody mortal you all are when it comes to this stuff. And
Mm.
yeah, I'm a better person because of it in many ways, just because of maybe those couple of things, right? I wasn't a bad guy before, so
It's interesting how things in our lives can shape us, and sometimes we can get trauma like that, and they call it sort of post-traumatic growth. So some people get trauma and they grow from it. That the trauma creates, it goes beyond resilience. It causes a transformational piece in their lives, mentally, and everything else. And it sounds like you've gone on that route and decided to take the growth option, so to speak. Others, for whatever reason, go more down. It becomes more of a post-traumatic stress disorder. It becomes quite stressful, becomes quite consuming of their lives. And it's interesting how you said that you try to, I know you can't carry on like normal, but just get on with day-to-day stuff and just sort of carry on. Obviously you're not oblivious to what you've got and there's limitations. I appreciate that, but that sort of mindset of thinking this is not going to stop me, but also what it's done is created you to be from your perspective, perhaps a better version of you that you were a number of years ago.
you know, I hope so. If you're not growing in some ways, and that's a way probably I needed to grow. Um, I think I've always been very good with people for the most part, but you know, you learn that I can be super intimidating to people just because of the way I come across. And you know, people say, "Well," I said, "I'm intimidating. How is that possible?" He goes, "Well, you just always know what to do." I'm like, "I have no idea what I'm doing half the time, right? I'm making stuff up." You know, trying to figure out which way is the best in the moment. And um, yeah, it is traumatic. I'll tell you, it consumes my days. I'll put it that way. Yes,
Yeah.
all day.
Now, there's been obviously the word resilience has been bandied around for the last number of years in light of the pandemic. And I'd like to get your perspective on, or your definition or your understanding of resilience based on your own sort of, I guess, journey and what you've been through or what you're going through still. And I'd like it from two angles. I'd like it from the personal people angle, but also what's your view on it from a business angle as well?
Yeah, from a business angle, maybe I'll start on that one, because resiliency is everything, especially during startup. Like the way I always envisioned a startup, because we've done a couple, is I got to get the rocket to the launch pad, then I got to get it fired. I got to get it off the pad. Okay, I got to get into Earth orbit before I can go Mach 33, go to the moon, right? So there's phases, and so I think resiliency, and I think really we were fortunate, the people we had or whatever we were doing. I think resiliency is the essential element early on, because so much of what you're doing early is going to affect what happens later. And so if you get the plumbing and wiring, this is just an analogy, the wiring and plumbing wrong in a house, you got a problem because now you got to tear the whole house down. So you got to get the plumbing and wiring, and that means like business systems, the right people, the right product, right? A number of different things you got to do well early, the right service model, right? And realize that at that point in time, it's all resiliency, right? And I think most people, or at least the original 10 with whom I will have conversations with from Aspire, all say they loved the first 3 years the best because it was just all rock and roll. And you know, you had to be resilient. Personal side, resiliency. Well, if you can't take care of yourself, then you expect other people to do it for you. I'm not trying to make that sound harsh,
Mm.
but I put a tremendous load on my wife every day. right? Because of my situation scenario. For her, just the idea that she could lose a husband is just overwhelming. It's got to be, and then, to see me in pain or fighting every day. There's a woman who demonstrates resiliency, right? That you suck it up may be the wrong word, but believe me, you have down days, and I try not to make them last longer than a day. I just pick myself up and go, okay, all right, we'll do another one, right? And so you really do learn to some extent the idea that sort of cliche, take it one day at a time, because really that's what you're doing. I mean, it's like you truly get to live that a day at a time. So, I got a goal today. I got to get through 5 to 6 things today, get those done, pray, and hope that tomorrow we get some progress, right? Yeah.
It's interesting because a thought popped into my mind of just when you were sharing it, that actually resiliency comes also from that self-awareness, aware of where you're at, aware, in terms of your capabilities and your limitations. Doesn't mean we get limited by that, but actually it's important to be aware, like you are aware, and then you've put things in place, what you're doing for today and to get through that today, and rather than just thinking it's all about grit, determination, gung-ho, because that's not resiliency. That's just being foolhardy in some ways. There's a key thing of learning and understanding and getting insights on ourselves, isn't there?
Yeah, and accepting that some things aren't going to be the way you want them. They're just not, and you got to improvise or innovate, or that's resiliency, and work around or work with whatever it is that's going on. And I think that is a little more than grit. That's knowing when to say, hey, enough of this, move on, step over. Let's not beat this thing to death. It's not going to work. And that's really key, I think, in the first couple of years of trying to scale a business is you're making decisions with not a lot of good data, right? Right? You don't have a ton of great data to go support that. You don't even have the time to go find it sometimes. So you got to trust your intuition a little bit, what other people say, and then if it doesn't work, go fix it, right?
And also, it's looking to try and enjoy the journey as well as much as you can. Look for the joy, look for the highs, look for the good things, rather than just focusing on the end goal, the outcomes, the things that you're after, the goals, but actually enjoy the day by days, the hour by hours. Try to look for the good stuff in all things, isn't it?
It is. I mean, otherwise, how could you show up every day? It'd be very difficult, to do it. So, I mean, as unlucky as I've been super lucky. I'm going to fight this thing. I'm going to get through it the next couple of months, and I'm going to be around for next year. So, step at a time. That's how I take it now.
Well, Kevin, you are an inspiration, a testament of your character and how you've responded to the challenges of cancer and continue to respond. How you've obviously, launched a business, grown a business, and sold a business is fantastic. So I know you've written this book, One Hit Wonder, and so it'd be good for you just to share how people can connect with you, and where they can get this book, where they can buy it online or in the stores, wherever it is. So if you want to share those details, that'd be good.
Yeah, thank you, Julian. Yeah, I wrote a book called One Hit Wonder, Real Life Adventures of an Average Guy, Lessons He Learned Along the Way. And you mentioned the word average, which is interesting because the word ordinary might have been equally as good. And the whole point being about the one hit wonder is that ordinary people can do extraordinary things if they're open to learning and trying and taking some risk, right? That's the whole concept. You may never get there, but in the process, you'll do tremendous things. And so, the one hit wonder is that thing, right? Ordinary people doing extraordinary things because of commitment, whatever it is, right? We all have different things. You can find it on Amazon. Just type in One Hit Wonder, it'll pop right up. You can also go to our website. That is onehitwonder.site, S-I-T-E, right? Onehitwonder.site. And you'll get all kinds of info on me, the author of the book, ordering, all that stuff. and some good blogs, some information.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for your time today, Kevin. Thank you for sharing. And I wish you well in your continual battle against cancer.
Thank you, Julian. I'm going to win it. So thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you.